Let's go, guys. All right, let's get started today. We're going to be talking about pre-listing marketing, kind of going back to one of our first calls that we did and talking about how to prepare the client for a slower market. Like, hey, what else can we do? What should we be doing, right? Because dropping the price is only part of the solution, and definitely not the solution in the seller's eyes, right? Because if you just keep on showing up every other week, it's like, we need to drop the price. We need to drop the price. At some point, they're going to just feel like, hey, you know what? This agent's just in it for the money. They don't care. They're not doing anything, right? So let's talk about that. I think the conversation really starts with when you first get the listing and you're preparing this whole pre-marketing program. What does it look like and what's the communication like? Because you can't just all of a sudden say, hey, we're going to drop the price again. We're going to drop the price again. Did you ever prepare the seller to be ready for price drops, to be ready for the market that we're actually in, and to be ready in general? Like, do they know what they're getting into? A lot of people don't. A lot of people just go ahead and list it, put pictures, hope it sells in about a month or less. And if there's a problem, then they're panicking. It's like, what do I do next? They have little to zero communication. I know, because when we call expireds, when I was calling expireds, the question that we would always ask is, so what happened? And then they'd say, well, we were listed, but the agent kind of stopped talking to us over a certain time. And it's just, we don't know that they really did everything for the home. And I'm being nice about it, right? I'm paraphrasing in the nicest way. So Mark, let's go over some things. Monch, I know you're in the background. Do me a favor and put up I think it was call number 2 that we did. I don't even know when we started, but we have this whole pre-marketing plan for listings. If you can put up the link in here so people can start looking at it and downloading it. What we typically do is we want to start in week 3. This is going to become even more important in 2023 because we are starting to see that if the rates stay where they're at, we're going to continue to see a slight slowdown in some areas. There's definitely not a crash. I think by now the media has already gotten a hold of that this is a correction, right? And unless we go into a bigger recession, then we may have a bigger dip in this correction. But right now we're looking at, according to a lot of different economists, 10% total in decline, which isn't bad. So let's get right into this. Let's go and start with week 3. I know Monch is looking for it quickly. And Monch, if you're looking for it, if you're going to the blog and to ABT, it's a week number 2. Maybe you can find it there if you can't find it anywhere else. But I wanted to start with that, and I've added some things to it because I prepared. There we go. So I got this. Mark, and you know what? Jacob's in here too. Jacob's part of our team. We're going to bring him in here one of these days, hopefully next week. But week number 3 is what we outline with week number 2 and week number 1. And when we sit down with the sellers, most of the time, our listing presentations, they differ, but for the most part, it's a conversation, right? We have a document that we give to them. They barely look at it for the most part, unless they're really analytical. And then they take a look, and it's all conversation and us listening. And the simpler we make it, the easier it is for them to grasp things. The more you throw at them, especially if they're just seeing it for the first time and they're sitting down, the less they're going to fully understand what you're actually going to do, right? It's almost like the more you're giving them, the less they're understanding. So what I like to do is on one page, we like to simplify it. And the simplification process is just outlining what we're going to do leading up to the listing. Like, what does this look like? Week 3, week 2, and week 1. I'm not sure that Monch is finding it, so I have it in front of me. Let me just grab it for you. I'm just going to go to, you know what? While I'm going to this, I'm just going to take you on my screen on a little trip to our website, since we do coaching. And we go through all of this in detail. Let me go to the blog section. On the blog section, you'll find all of the free coaching that we do. And we started this free coaching every week. for the industry so that we can help you guys out. I think it was this one. Now, I've added some things since then, but this is what it looks like. Mark, can you see this, buddy?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right, so you can go on there and grab the link. Just abrillianttribe.com. Go to the blog. It's on page 2 of the blog. It should say coaching. It should say free coaching, not blog. Don't you think, Mark?
Free coaching for the blog.
Free. Is that we should confuse people more? I think that's what we should do.
Are you feeling confused?
What does the octopus think?
That's the blog.
Is that your new newsletter? What does the octopus think?
Just drop it on people's doorstep.
Week 3, we go with pro picks. This is what we give. We actually get this out and say, hey, this is what we're going to build up to, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, or just Mrs. Seller. We've got this itemized for you so you know what we're going to be doing for you for the next few weeks. And look, the question I always get is like, whoa, wait a second. What if we're taking the listing on next week? I'm like, well, then part of this is going to fall into the first week of you actually being live. So we like to get a 3-week runway in a market just like we're in, because we like to prepare things as much as possible. So we like to start with week 3 pro picks, but sometimes I know that the photographer is booked out. Like, this is why we have 2 to 3 different photographers. And in this case, sometimes we have to go find, like sometimes I'm texting Jacob, like, Jacob, we need a different photographer because the one we have can't come out this week. Next, 3D tours, long and short. So we do have someone that does 3D tours for us that can either shorten them into like less than a minute. And we have our team that can edit them and make them flow so that they go onto Reels and they go onto YouTube Shorts and so forth. So the 3D tours now, not only are you going to see the whole 3D tour like you had on Matterport, but 3D tours can be like you going with a camera. Like, Mark, if you're going through a listing and you just took a listing and you just put it under contract, did you even have a chance to do a 3D tour on it?
No, did not. But we did have a chance to do drone shots, which were pretty cool.
Yeah, and these are all suggestive, guys. You don't have to jump in and do it. Like, I know we didn't do box brownie on this one, but on Valerie's that she just got up in Ventura, she did it. She had box brownie in there. She had to fix up a few pictures and she had to digitally enhance parts of the home. Obviously, we let the people know. Aerial pics on the drone video. Mark, did you also do aerial pics?
Yeah, aerial pics and a little like drone marketing piece thingy. Wait, real quick. Claudia wants to know what is male JL? That was in week 1.
All the way down?
Yeah.
We'll get it. We'll get there. We'll get there. We've only got 15 minutes left. Claudia, we'll get there. Blair wants to know, what week is the balloon method implemented? Blair, this is not the market for the balloon method. And I'll tell you the joke in a little bit. Seller story. This is one thing we don't do enough of. You don't sit down with the seller and say, hey, tell me your story, because I'm going to retell it on social. I'm going to retell it to other people. So I think one thing we forget is that people fall in love with the idea of living somewhere because of what it create for them, how they feel, and what it does for their family. And part of that is the story that we're just not telling. Like, Mark, why did you pick the home that you live in right now? How did you end up there after being like not finding the place over and over and getting rejected? Because you bought at the height of the market, right? So
just
how did it feel? How did you finally find this place, and why did you like it?
Yeah, so actually I was in escrow with another home, and something just didn't sit right when I was in it. Like, at first I was excited, and then something just wasn't sitting right. And I decided, I was like, you know what? This isn't right. I can't do this. And it was very early on. And then I walked into this place and I'm like, I don't know, something just clicked. It clicked. Like, I just knew. I was like, this is the home. This is the one. And jumped in and got it for a great price. It was a good deal. It represented myself, and it was awesome, dude. It was great. I was just, to answer your question, though, it was just a feeling, you know?
It's a feeling. Isn't that funny how a
Doesn't
lot of the
doesn't hurt
decisions,
that it was a doesn't hurt that it was a good deal, but
it was a good deal. I know.
so there's that. But it was just a feeling though. Had I not had that feeling, I wouldn't have cared. I would have been like, no, I'm not doing it. So I don't want to live there.
And what was the feeling? Where did it come from? Like, is it because of the area? Is it because how you felt inside the home? Your
Dude,
vision about it? What?
absolutely, like the surrounding area and the inside of the home were the two things that were just like, hey, this is I got it. I gotta have this. I gotta go for it. It needs to happen.
And what about the surrounding areas or the inside of the home? What is it?
Yeah. Well, I grew up around this area, so like the fact that like I actually, the funny thing is, actually really really close to my home is an apartment complex, and that was like the first apartment complex I ever lived in, like years and years
Mm.
ago. So it was like really crazy. It was like kind of like a little surreal. I was like, wow, like I'm back like in my old stomping grounds. It was cool. It was really cool. Also,
I
the
think so. We
proximity
can
to
add
be
a
able to get
story there.
to places. Yeah, there you go. Story.
So we can add a story there. If I'm selling your home and I ask you these questions and I dive a little deeper, then I can go, obviously with your permission, if I'm the agent, you're the seller, and I can tell that story. Look, Mark grew up across the street from here. This was his first place. So when he found it, he felt like it was right at home and it was meant to be. And
Yeah.
for him, it's close to where he works, it's close to his family, and it's new construction for him. So he's like, you know what, I'm not going to have to put a lot of money into this, just into the furniture, and I can start a family here if this is where I'm going to be for a little bit. So part of that feeling is in the explanation, right? Because look at what Jacob says too. We got our house because the owners were a young couple who started their family there, and they took our offer over a much higher offer or offers to pay it forward to a young family. Do you see how understated telling the story and understanding the story of both sides is? And we don't do enough of that, not only on the remarks in the marketing, but in social media. So it's important to understand what the story is. Because I still remember stories from growing up, right? I went to a Christian school. So I remember the story of David. I remember the story of Samson. I remember the story of all the prophets, not all of them, some of them. Right? But I remember the fun ones. I remember stories. And so what do you remember? You remember stories too. So let's see what we got here.
Too is that we do on the team is that we have a sheet that asks, tell us a bit about your experience with the home. And what I like to ask the sellers is, hey, help me help you and give me some info on what it was that clicked with you with this home, so that way I can express that to other people, and so that way they can click with it as well, or I can help identify the right buyer. Because not only does it help the buying side and help connect with the right buyer, but it also makes the seller feel comfortable that their home is going to another family that they can relate to, or that they think will take care of the home like they did.
Yeah, and Todd makes a great point, which isn't all of that fair housing violation. It is if you get into religion, obviously family, and raising a family here or there, and getting into any of those aspects. But if we're talking about why this seller picked the home in the first place because they grew up here, and you're telling the story as to why the seller picked the place, as long as you exclude that, then you're just telling a regular story as to what happened, what's the process, without including he has a family, he did this, he did that. So I think this is where you start getting creative, right? We're here as storytellers. There's a great book. I brought it up yesterday, so I'm going to bring it up right now. And if you were part of that social group, the group coaching that we did, which was really good. All marketers, here it is. I know it's reversed, but read it with, it says, all marketers are liars. He crossed that out. He says, all marketers tell stories. Now I'm going to read something to you because I read it yesterday, and I think we have a different crowd here. Mark, I know you weren't there yesterday, and neither were you, Jacob. But this is my favorite, one of my favorite sections of this whole book. The book's like 120 pages. So if you want to get it. It's by Seth Godin. And Seth Godin writes, he says, some of my best friends are liars. You ready for this one? You ready, Mark?
I'm ready. I need a popcorn.
Is your popcorn? Is your little octopus ready though?
That was really weird. This is
That
what he's
sounded
talking about.
weird. Forget the little octopus.
For
Okay?
those who just joined, this is what he's talking
Yeah, little octopus. All right, here we go. He says, this is Seth Godin. Arthur Riolo is a world-class storyteller. Arthur sells real estate in my little town north of New York City. He sells a lot of real estate, more than all his competition combined. That's because Arthur doesn't sell anything. Anyone can tell you the specs of a house or talk to you about the taxes, but he doesn't. Instead, Arthur does something very different. He takes you and your spouse for a drive. You drive up and down the hills of a neighborhood, and he points out house after house, houses that aren't even for sale. He tells you who lives in that house and what they do and how they found the house and the name of their dog and what their kids are up to and how much they paid. He tells you a story about the different issues in town, the long simmering rivalries between neighborhoods, and the evolution and imminent demise of the Mothers Club. Then, and only then, does Arthur show you a house. You understand that? That's the story. So going back to Todd, it's not a fair housing violation if you tell a story in this way that excludes those things that make it a fair housing violation, right? It's the story, right? And that's key. I mean, when I was reading that, I thought of a few people on our team that do that extremely well. And Jacob was one of them who's on here. But the storytelling aspect, that's what really connects with people, because they're either going to love it because of the stories, or they're going to realize this area is not for me, right? Like, why would I want to be in Mom's Club and its demise? Or, well, I don't feel it here. But if you tell me there's a comic book store close by with a great coffee shop and the beach is close by, I'm like, I'm in, right? And who surfs at what time? And what time does this coffee shop open? And the comic book store stays open until 11. Like, all of a sudden, like, and what, there are pickleball courts? Yeah, I'm in. It's the story. And sometimes we forget to ask the seller these things. Like, what do you do? Where do you go hike? What do you do on your spare time? That's what's selling this home, just as much as the price. So think about that. Don't forget about that. Jacob made that point, so it's perfect. Now, going back to some questions here. Yes, it starts with week 3 leading to day 0 on the multiple listing service. So you're going backwards, right? Week 3, going to week 2, going to week 1, then day 0. Right. So we were selling a story. Home details, obviously get the details. Just listed creation. That means if you're going to mail out, if you're going to call, like what we do sometimes, Mark, he uses RedX to circle dial around this just listed home. And Mark, how do you prepare for that?
Well, first I talk about to myself what I'm going to be saying. I figure out what the script is. Let's say, for example, it's just listed, right? Yeah. So I put myself in that mental headspace. Okay, hey, so I'm going to be talking to individuals who may not know that the house is on the market yet. Maybe it's coming soon. Maybe it just hit. So I'm going to do what? I'm going to provide value, right? I'm in the value mindset. I'm going to tell these people something about their neighborhood, and I want to see kind of what their feedback is on that. If they know anyone that's going to be looking in the neighborhood to move, if they don't, how long they've been in their home. Is their home the perfect home for them? Is it their forever home? If not, what does that look like? So on and so forth. Invite them to an event, perhaps. Maybe it's an open house. Maybe it's a client appreciation thing, neighborhood appreciation thing. Kind of depends on what the scenario is. But if it's like a just listed or coming soon, that's where I'm going.
I like that. And if you're having challenges as to what you're going to say, one of the things I used to do is the letter creation. This is why I have it here. The letter creation is, this letter goes out to all the neighbors. And so this is part of you telling that story. If I'm going to sit down, Mark, with your client, if I'm going to sit down and say, okay, tell me when you bought this home and why you moved into this. Tell me the story. And then I just listen, I take notes, and then I go ahead and create a letter. And this letter is going out to all the neighbors. And it says, hey neighbor, your neighbor at so-and-so, his name, his family, whoever it is, they're moving. And even though they moved in 15 years ago, because they fell in love with the neighborhood as they were driving by, blah, 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 story, they're finally moving. And this is what they're doing, because that's the biggest question we get. Why are they moving, and where are they moving to? Answer that in the letter. And that goes out to all the neighbors. And the request is same thing. Mark does this really well. It's like, you want to pick your neighbors, right? At an open house, but do it in a way that's in part of the story, right? Who's going to live in this home? We need your help. And that letter, I barely see anybody send that letter out. But that letter also serves as the same way to approach the just listed. Can you imagine getting that call, Mark, instead of just saying, hey, I just listed a home on 4235, your neighbor, and do you know anybody that's interested in buying a home or moving into the neighborhood? It's the same crap that everybody else is saying. Instead of, hey, Mark, this is Tristan. I'm representing Joe just across the street from you. Do you have a couple of minutes? Because he's moving out. And be like, yeah. Well, look, I don't know if you know the story, but Joe's been here for 15, 17 years. And when he first came here, he didn't think he'd be here that long. But now he's looking to downsize, and he wants to move to Oregon, and he just wants to be out in the wilderness. I mean, I don't know about you, but not me, but that's not for me, but he's going to love it. He says he's going to hike every day, and this is what you're selling.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't do that enough. Right?
I feel like a lot of us get stuck in the go-to action. You know?
Yeah, the action.
Yeah, it's just like
the action
the
part is
mundane, like, it's like the you get caught in like just the habitualness of it all.
Yeah, it's like this is why my preference after dialing for so long and doing telemarketing, I just can't, for me personally, I can't do the triple dial, because it makes me feel like I'm just going to the next. I love just single dial.
Yeah, same.
I can tell the story. Yeah. I can slow down. Right.
I get a little anxiety when I think about like there's 3 people like waiting for me to get like on the line. It's a little like, like anxiety driven.
I agree with you. All right. Home inspection. We typically do a home inspection 3 weeks before. If the seller wants to, we get it at a discounted price because we have a home inspector who does this. This way we know what's wrong with the home before we put it up on the market. 3 weeks before, it gives us enough time to fix it up. We get a floor plan as well. Next week 2, shit, dude, where did the time go? It's like 1:28. Holy crap. All right. Marketing graphics. Before we
go. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go. Shoot. No.
Okay. Well, Irma asked, hi, Mark, you mentioned, oh, there it goes. Hi, Mark, you mentioned that in your team, you use a list of questions for the seller. Can you please share it or tell it to us what those questions you ask are? Yeah, for sure. So I know we're kind of running out of time here, so I'll leave you with 3 questions today. And then, you can always DM me on Instagram and I can share more with you. But number 1, first question I ask is, why are you moving? Right? Why are you moving? Where are you moving to? Those kinds of things. Number 2 is I like to ask is why this home? Why did you choose this home? What made you fall in love with this home? Right? It kind of plays into what we were just talking about the story, right? And then number 3 is I ask is, what are you going to miss the most about this home?
I like that question.
And then also another way to ask that is, what's something about this home, a feature of this home that's a must-have in your other home? Because after having it here, you got to have it in the next place. Because I'm going to harp on those things. I'm going to harp on those things, that the seller loves those things and that they're practical and that they're, awesome for the next buyer or prospect that's coming through.
That's a good one, dude. I like that one. It reminds me of a question we ask when we're going through the home. If I'm going through that same sheet, and this one right here, which is prepare week 3 items, but walk the home, gather missing info. Right there, we also ask like, hey, Mark, like if you were going to move into this home, right? What would be some of the things you'd fix in the home just to have it kind of ready to live into? And then you're already thinking one or two things. You know, that window in the corner of the master, it gets stuck, right? I would love that fix and be like, okay, so what's stopping you from fixing it for the next buyers? Right. So that's how we prepare that when we're walking through everything. Next, termite inspection. Invite past clients to event. If you're going to have an event for this on day 0 or week 1, or just an open house, order signs, Facebook ads. Yep, we still run those with Instagram ads as well. Call the neighbors if you're calling them. Okay, so I think it was Claudia. Mail just listed postcards. So we do those on week 1 so that they're out. That first week it goes live. We mail the letters that we created. See, we created them over here. We didn't mail them. We mailed them over here. Text clients in the database. If we have clients that match the specific home, email local agents. I know we do that very well. Team posts to social. We don't always do that well, but we've done that pretty well on the ones we sell. And then owner email database. That's if the owner wants to send it out to their database or post it up on their socials. We create one graphic for them as well. So what questions did I miss, Mark? Anywhere else?
Elizabeth did a recap and I said, yes, it was pretty spot on. She's got one crazy memory. It's fantastic. And I think that's it. That was it. We're good to go.
All right. Perfect. Let me grab a link really quick. If you have questions, if you want to jump in on this coaching that we do, Mark does a script coaching, 30 minutes every week. We do real estate coaching twice a month, and then we do social media coaching as well for your business. That's all included in the group coaching. If you have any information, if you want information, text us. Do they have our information, Mark? Do they have our cell phone?
You know, here's my IG. I got you.
You know what? If you have questions, DM Mark or just go into brillianttribe.com/contact that we put there and follow Mark. Mark, do you ever put any good music out there on your IG?
Yeah, all the time.
Wait, what are you at right now? I got a couple of minutes. Hold on. Let me see here. Instagram. Let's take a look. You broke 1,000 last time, right?
Oh yeah, it's Sir Marcus. Yeah.
It's
1,015 is where I'm at now.
Oh, damn.
You guys. Thank you. Very kind of you.
It's a Marcus. Let me see here. It's a Marcus. Well, that's not you. Where are you, man? It's a Marcus.
ITS. SARMARK.
Oh, there you are. There you are. I forgot the S.
What is the last link for?
You just went up by 2 more.
The last link that we sent is how to get a hold of us, and also a link to our coaching.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, you've been busy, buddy.
I got one more I'm posting today as soon as our team sends it.
Let's see. You got 1.1, 1.6, 650, and 2 million. That's pretty good, buddy. Just in the last couple of weeks. Look at that. You're on. You're doing pretty well there. I'm glad you're on the team.
Me too, man.
Pickleball.
Me too,
maybe
man.
Later today. And
Jacob and I are playing at 5:00. Hit us up. Let's play. We'll go to Dos Vientos or we'll go to Ventu.
And then you guys are coming to my house on Friday or no?
Yeah, we'll be there. I'll be there. I got dude. Nicole's bringing a great white elephant gift. It's going down.
Mine's the crappiest one. Dude, so you know which one's mine.
If you find out which one's hers, you got to get it.
I think the whole time we're just going to be doing the white elephant. There's a lot of people.
What else is there to do? This is the best thing.
Oh, if you were local, I'd invite you later. I have to call you. So is it Lida or Leda? I don't remember. I'm sorry, Lida or Leda. It's Lida. I knew it. Damn it. All right, Lida. I got you. I'll call you. All right, everybody.
Super.
Thanks for being on. Follow Mark on itsmarcus.com. I think you're up to 1,000. When Jacob's in, we'll have everyone follow Jacob. What are you up to?
I don't know. They keep going in. I think 3,000.
Instagram pros.
Could you imagine?
All right, everybody. Have an awesome week.
All right, guys.
See you next week. And if you have any questions, reach out to us.